Hello everyone! So as you might see in the scene behind me, I am working on going and editing the vlog that you will be seeing. However, I realized I never did an intro for that video. I thought I had, but apparently I didn't. So in this video, it's going to be basically a mood reading vlog that takes place at the beginning of the Gala of Peace for Realmathon, and then goes and includes a lot of events that happened after, and giving you a recap of the books that I read throughout this vlog. Kind of all over the place, but has a lot of fun things that happened. Time just got away from me, and I didn't get as much footage as I was hoping during the Gala of Peace for the 48 hours, so it just turned into a little bit of a mood reading vlog and has a bunch of stuff that way. So I hope you enjoy it, even though it might be a little bit chaotic at times, but ultimately still has a lot of the cozy vibes that I know y'all like. So that being said, I'm gonna go and turn it over to a lot of the other fun stuff that happens, but talk to you later. We just got back from the new Barnes & Noble that opened like really close to where we live. Charles took me for a little date to go there because I've just been so excited, and I think originally it was supposed to open in the summer, but then that ended up not happening. They opened, I think, like a week or two ago. So we've kind of been waiting and planning to go, and holy crap, it was super, super busy. I was a little overwhelmed and was sweating. Just because as someone that never really leaves the house, whenever I'm around a lot of people, it definitely makes me anxious. It was a really cool Barnes & Noble. I didn't get a lot of footage because unfortunately it was jam-packed. So I was lucky enough to get the little bit of footage that I had on my phone. They had everything kind of organized into sections, but at the same time it felt really confusing because there was an Octavia E. Butler book that was actually in their, I think, sci-fi and fantasy area. But then when I was going and perusing through the young adult section, then they had that same book there, but it was a different edition. So it was a little overwhelming and confusing trying to go and find specific books. It also, because it has opened up not too long ago, it was just jam-packed. It was really hard to maneuver and walk around, but I did end up going and finding some books. I kind of had this little list curated that I was trying to stick to, and I actually was good. I got a few different books. I think only two that weren't originally on my list and weren't on my radar to go and pick up. Also, this background that you see right here, this is actually going to go on the side of my desk, but I am trying to like maneuver and move things around, and it currently has a lot of books from my past book haul. That was my first and last book haul, huge book haul that I planned on doing this year. So right now I just have it kind of organized with, these are like some sprayed edge books that I have. And unfortunately, this shelf does not really hold books. It holds like a few, but a lot of my hardback books are like books like Dire Bound. It's too long and won't fit. So a lot of them I kind of have on their sides like this. And these are kind of the books that either are just thick or maybe I've planned to read them for a bingo board. So in a way it's going to kind of be my TBR shelf, but it's also a little bit all over the place. And then it has these nice little drawers that I'm really excited to use to just organize things because my desk does not have any storage. So I've been craving storage and more organization, and hopefully after I get a lot of this stuff figured out, I can eventually do a little office library tour for you, because I think I'm probably at the library amount, which is 1,000. But anyway, that was a side tangent just to kind of explain what you see in the background. I have books that I'm gonna go over with you. Some of them are my books that I got, and then some of them are Charles's. Now, if you saw my last huge book haul video, that was the last book haul video that I plan on doing, at least showing all the books that I'm purchasing. But I did have a few little tentative rules with my book buying ban that I planned on doing. It had to be a book that was continuing on in a series that I was reading and things like that. I did kind of break that rule that I had. So I did still get books that I had on my radar, on my TBR, that I really wanted to read. So I technically didn't really break too much. It was just a little bit of a stretch, but this isn't something I'm planning on doing a bunch of, so I thought it was okay to do some wiggle room. I also did have a gift card from my future mother-in-law. She got me a Barnes & Noble gift card for my birthday because she knows how much I love books. So I had that I was hanging on to for a rainy day whenever we did end up going to Barnes & Noble. Last thing I'll say before I end up going into this little haul, I know that there's like mixed feelings on whether or not you should go and buy books from Barnes & Noble and if you should support small and indie bookstores. And I think I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. I think 100% you should go and support indie bookstores. Like, that is very important because they're small businesses and they do so much good and so many great things for the community. And Barnes & Noble does have their pros and cons, but I think a huge pro that a lot of people tend to forget at the end of the day is that Barnes & Noble is there sharing a love of books and a outlet for people to go and purchase books, especially maybe, let's say, if they live in a small town or something like that. I came from a small town and we only had libraries and a huge bookstore. I think at that point it was Borders, rest in peace. I'm so sad, I miss Borders. And then we had BAM. So those were our only bookstores. We didn't really have small bookstores, and I think those didn't come into place until after I moved. At the end of the day, I think those are some things that you have to consider. Barnes & Noble does have some not so great pieces about it, but it does go and curate a love of books for the community. It provides a location that is a safe space for people to go to get books. And I think no matter what, something that curates a love of books and is not Amazon, I think we should still support it. And that's my little TED talk. All right, let's go and talk about books. One of the last books I actually picked up was Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. This book has been on my radar for a long time, and I've kind of been keeping my eye out on Book Outlet to see if I could snag it there. And since I don't really plan on purchasing any more books, or not as frequently, I was like, okay, this is a rare chance where those rules that I gave myself don't apply. So I did finally pick up this book. I know a lot of my booktube friends have raved about it. Just a little bit about this book. It says, the most fun you'll ever have with a skeleton, which very much intrigues me. The Emperor needs necromancers. The ninth necromancer needs a swordswoman. Gideon has a sword, some dirty magazines, and no more time for undead nonsense. And then it says, this unveils a solar system of swordplay, cutthroat politics, and lesbian necromancers. I am so intrigued, especially by the lesbian necromancer piece. I think especially because my D&D character, she's a little bit more morally gray and likes a lot of necromancy type of things. I'm really drawn to books that have necromancers or any kind of like dark, deadly magic. So that seems to be a lot of the books that I'm drawn to, especially lately, but I'm very excited to read this one. Another one that I got was Half City by Kate Golden. I was influenced by Covers with Cassidy to get this book. I think it was one of her Realmathon sprints that she was actually talking about reading this one. She compared it to Winx Club and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and both of those things I absolutely adore. For those of you that don't know, I have a cat, Kiko. He was actually my second born, and I named him Kiko after Bloom's bunny, Kiko. So just a little nerdy lore about me. So as soon as Cassidy said that piece and just was saying how much she loved it, I was like, I really need to check out this book. I'm very curious. So it says, welcome to Harker Academy for deviant defense. Keep your dagger sharp and your wits even sharper. Viv Abbott is an average 21-year-old girl. She lives in an expensive city where the rent is too high, works long hours at a thankless job, and is dating a guy she doesn't even like in the hopes of winning her prickly mother's approval. She also happens to be a demon hunter. Then a book that I didn't have any intention on picking up was The Stone Road, and this is by Trent Jameson. It was one that kind of drew my attention because at the time when I was looking at that specific shelf, I was kind of like stuck. There were so many people around me, and I looked over and I was like, I really like the cover of this book. So what is it about? It says, beyond casemate, rise, the dead speak beneath your feet. Twisted monsters hunger. Jean must defend her town against the surrounding dark. On the day Jean was born, the dead howled. Beyond the town's borders, a siren call for the mysterious furnace began to draw the people away, never to return. I mean, this just kind of screams a book that is made for me. So I'm excited for this one. I haven't heard anyone talk about it. Then another one that I picked up that was not on my list is The Light in Hades by Elise Nelson, She Was the Secret He Was Never Meant to Keep. So this one was actually in a corner of Barnes & Noble that was specifically kept for local authors. And this was an author that I don't know if I saw her at the Springs Book Bash or anything like that. So I didn't really recognize the name, and I went and double checked her website too, because it had it listed on the back, and I totally don't remember seeing her at all. But I really want to go and highlight and read more books by local authors. So I was really excited when I saw this one, and I think the cover is just so beautiful. So it says, She was the secret he was never meant to keep. Corellia of Olympus was gifted the destiny of becoming Persephone, goddess of nature and spring. As every great one is told, she must follow the path appointed to her, or the world will be off balance. Beneath Mount Olympus, Theron of Tartarus has been groomed to become Hades, god of the underworld, despised by everyone on Olympus and tormented by his mentor. He has only known a life of abuse and despair. I'm so curious for this one, and I think there is a prompt on Cassidy's Romantasy bingo board that has a retelling on it, and I was kind of struggling for what book I wanted to read that felt right and that I was in the mood for, so this might be one that I have my eyes on for that space. Then another book I got was Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. This is one that has been on my radar for some time, and I just haven't picked it up. I keep forgetting about it, and I can't remember who I was seeing talk about it recently, and I was like, you know what? Let's just get the dang book and read it, because I know it's going to be one that I'm really going to enjoy. So it says, Are you happy with your life? Those are the last words Jason Desson hears before the kidnapper knocks him unconscious, before he awakens to find himself strapped to a gurney, surrounded by strangers in hazmat suits, before a man he's never met smiles down at him and says, Welcome back, my friend. Oof, I'm excited. And then last book that I ended up getting, this one was the more spendy book that I got, but I have been really wanting to read it, and it's To Cage a Wild Bird by Brooke Fast. Get in, get out, don't fall in love. I've just been in such a dystopian book mood, and it seems like this year is just made for dystopian books. I've heard really good things about this, so I had to get my hands on it. It also is the one that has these gorgeous sprayed edges, and then it has these end pages on the inside. It says, In the city of Davidium, the law is simple. Commit a crime, and your punishment is a life sentence in End lock. Raventhorn is Davidium's most notorious bounty hunter, living on the edge of society. But when her younger brother Jed is sentenced to Endlock, Raven will do anything to save him, even if it means getting herself arrested. And then on the back it says, Get to the blood tree. I wonder what that means. I'm so curious. I'm excited for this one. This has been one that has been an anticipated read for me, so I'm excited to dive into it. And then, because I have a partner that also loves getting books as well, I have their haul. So one of the books that they ended up picking up was Wagons and Wyverns by Z.S. Diamante. This is an author that we got to meet at the Springs Book Bash, and Charles read Guard in the Garden by the same author and really, really loved that book so much. I want to say he ended up going and tearing up or getting really emotional during it. So he was excited to get this one, and it's also a signed edition. And it's so cute because the author went and wrote Bring Joy on the inside with their signature. So this says, From behind the throne to trails unknown, Zarn Karek, oof, I don't think I'm saying that right, spent much of his life in the service of a wicked orc king. When a new rebellion seizes control of the kingdom and overthrows the king, he has no choice but to move back to his quaint hometown in the Gunra Valley. With his life of regal service seemingly in the past, Zarni must live a quiet and inconspicuous life of loneliness to avoid being recognized. Oof. I can't wait to hear what Charles says about this one, but he loved the other book by this author, and I know he's been really excited to go and read more by them. Then another book that he got that was super fun is Dragon Curse by Elsie Kova, and this one has these beautiful sprayed edges. I don't know if you can see it fully, but it has a dragon's face there. So cool. And then on the inside of the book, it has a dragon on the end pages. So this one says, The moment you see a dragon is usually your last. Since the dragons emerged along with a scourge that ravaged our lands and people, there's only one human city that remains standing, Vingard. But the hellfire from above is nothing compared to the threat from within. For there is no worse fate than being dragon cursed. Slowly and excruciatingly, you'll be transformed into a mindless beast who destroys everything and everyone you love. So for those that don't know, Charles absolutely loves dragons. It's one of his favorite things. He has a lot of different dragon stuffed animals and not mannequins, models and things like that in his office, as well as his office at the school he works at. So I mean, you can definitely tell why this was one that drew his attention. And then the last one that Charles picked up was The Mists of Avalon by Marion Zimmer Bradley. I actually remember picking this book up years ago when I was still in, I think, not elementary school. I remember picking this one up years ago, I think when I was in high school, but I didn't get too into it because I think like some concepts just went over my head or I wasn't fully invested in it. But I was not surprised when Charles ended up showing me that they picked up this book. It says King Arthur lives on. Let's see if there's like a synopsis or something on the side. So I'm not seeing too much of like a synopsis on it, but it says the magical saga of the women behind King Arthur's throne, a monumental reimagining of the Arthurian legends. Reading it is a deeply moving and at times uncanny experience. Ooh. But yeah, this is an older book and it is a pretty thick boy. So I'm curious to see what Charles's thoughts are on that book as well. But yeah, that's our little mini book haul. It was a really fun experience. And I forgot to mention that while I was going through the bookstore, I kid you not, my arms were like this hanging onto all the books, and while I was looking at one of the end tables, there was this little girl that came up to me and she's like, "Excuse me, can you tell me where this is?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I don't work here." So I thought that was hilarious, and Charles is like, "You just give off like bookstore librarian worker." So I guess I've made it. Someone got me mistaken and thought that I worked there. So that was really cool. But yeah, it was a fun experience going to that bookstore. I'm probably, like I said, not going to buy a bunch of books or anything like that. I still am doing my kind of tentative book ban, but aside from these books that I got today, I do plan on mostly just getting books that continue on with a series that I'm reading. That is really the only exception I'm planning on doing, but yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. This is not going to be a separate book haul video as you would have seen. This is kind of intermixed with the 48-hour Realmathon Gala of Peace that's currently going on, but I thought this was a cool little intermission into a fun little book haul and checking out a new bookstore. But I gotta get back to reading so I can get Team Cleric some points, but I hope you enjoyed this little intermission. Well, I'm getting ready to go and end things for Gala of Peace for the Realmathon. Whew, this is my first reading sprint, so I'm a little bit nervous. I think I got everything set up correctly, so fingers crossed, but whew, there's already a lot of people in the chat. So if you're watching this and you're someone that has been in the chat for this, I love you so much and I appreciate you all. And whew, hopefully we get a lot of reading done, friends. And Kiko believes in us, right, Bubba? This is like the one moment he decides not to answer back when I talk to him. Go figure. Whew, okay, so we're currently on, I think, our last reading sprint, unless I decide to do another one. Honestly, I feel like this will probably be the last one just so I can get some YouTube work and stuff done for my regular posting day. But I did finish reading Grey After Dark. This is my first book that has been finished for the gala. I don't know if I'll be able to sneak in any others. But holy crap, this was so good and also extremely terrifying because it is based off of a real story. And I really love at the end of the book that the author had a note going and talking about the Olympic athlete that had this experience that happened to her and just talking about her bravery and resilience in this. And then just ended up going and saying at the end that she really hopes that she did this justice, especially for all survivors. And I just thought that was beautiful. I feel like this is probably going to be a 5-star read for me. It was incredibly difficult. I had chills just knowing the fact that this was based off of a true story, and it was so intense, especially in the last like 40 pages. I was just like, I need to finish this. I need to know what happens. And then there also is a QR code in the back of the book where we get a perspective, like a little free bonus story for one of the characters that was in it. So I'm really curious to go and check that out. I'll probably check it out maybe later after I'm done sprinting and done editing some YouTube videos. but holy crap. This was amazing. Definitely a 5-star read for me. And I'm still going back and forth talking about Daggermouth, which was one of the other books I finished for the month of March and for Realmathon. And I'm still trying to go back and forth, but there is a very big chance that I could have 2 5-star reads for this readathon, which is absolutely amazing. So now is the difficult decision to figure out what I want to read. To be honest, my wrist is incredibly sore. This book was a little bit on the stiffer side and heavier, so it did make it really hard going and holding the book open to go and read it. But I know I do need to read The Spite House by Johnny Compton, but there is a chance that maybe I'll try to see if I can pick up an audiobook for this one and maybe just read a book off of my Kindle instead so I don't have to hold a book open. But I'm struggling. I really don't know what I want to read next. And I know I need to also read Catching Fire by Suzanne Collins for my Defend the TBR. So there is that. I also do have the book of Azrael by Amber V. Nicole, but that is a chunky book, and especially right now with how my wrist feels, I don't know if I can hold a hefty book open like that right now. I'm kind of leaning towards Kindle, and maybe it will just be one of those situations where I have multiple books going. So we'll see how this goes, but also just to show you, we're doing Spirit City Lo-Fi here, and then here's everyone that's joined in for reading sprints. It's super awesome. I'm very appreciative towards a lot of the fellow hosts that showed up for my very first reading sprint. And then I know I randomly went and gave a lot of people modding permissions, especially since we had some weird person that showed up and I didn't notice because I was so invested in my book. So all of you that got put as mods, hopefully you're not too upset with that random promotion. But I'm gonna go and figure out what the heck I'm gonna read because I have around 16 minutes left now. So talk to you after sprints are over. Hello, so it is quite a few hours later. After the reading sprint was done, I just needed to just relax and kind of have floor time and everything, but that was Nuggy whining. But I went and took a shower, and I've kind of just been relaxing and playing Project Zomboid while going and watching some ASMR videos. I think because I wasn't able to do a lot of vlogging for the 48-hour readathon, I'm just gonna go and make this video more of a week-long vlog type of thing, just so I can get more footage and all that, because it feels weird. I don't have enough stuff to really do anything with this video. So a couple of things that I'm going to be doing and reading for this week. I need to finish reading The Spite House by Johnny Compton. This is a book that I'm doing with some of the other hosts that were from the Dungeons and Book Dragons readathon. We've been doing like a quarterly book club, and basically we're having our very first book club meeting, and that will be this weekend. And I have not read this book. So what I'm thinking about doing is I might do tandem reading where I read bits of this book physically and then also listen to it via audiobook. I was able to go and snag a copy of this book through Libby. So I think what I'll do is I'll probably listen to that this week. But I also do have an audiobook for The Warrior Princess, and I think that's due in 3 days. So I need to listen to that within the next couple of days. And I also started listening to Leather and Lark by Bryn Weaver. I started that before the Gala of Peace, so I kind of pushed it to this side because that book obviously wouldn't count because it needed to be a book that was started during the 48 hours. So now that the Gala of Peace is over with, I'm able to go and continue listening to that book. And I got that one via Everend. I'm honestly trying to go and listen to all of my books that I have through Everend. I think it's around 13 books, so then I can honestly just cancel that subscription. Yeah, I'd like to just cancel that subscription. I did not realize that if you cancel your plan with them, you can't listen to any of your books that you have used credits for, and I'm not a fan of that. So yeah, I'm trying to go and listen to all the books that I have there and then cancel that and just switch over to using, I think, Libro FM. And then another book that I am trying to start reading, I'm just
reading a million books at once, which is very odd for me, but usually as long as they're different genres, then it doesn't bother me too much. So we'll see how things go. And if it's in different formats, like a physical book, audiobook, Kindle, that also helps my brain differentiate between the different styles of books. So the one that I have on my Kindle is This Wretched Alchemy by Tina Marr. I actually got an ARC for it and I've been meaning to start it, but I just haven't been in the mood for a fantasy. But after finishing Daggermouth, I'm really craving like an enemies to lovers book again. So I can't wait to check this one out. I was gonna start it right after I finished Grey After Dark, but then my Kindle stopped working and I wasn't able to start it. Thankfully, my Kindle's working again. This Kindle is, I think, over 8 years old. I got it, I think, right into my sophomore year of college, and it's been working well. I haven't had a need to go and upgrade it or anything like that, so I'm glad that it didn't completely bork on me and I had to get a new one. But yeah, I think I'm going to go back to playing some Project Zomboid and also watching some ASMR videos. I find that that's sometimes my favorite way to decompress, especially when I'm low on spoons. So that will be a lot of fun, but I wanted to show you this. So I don't normally debug or use any sort of cheat stuff, but with this game, I've kind of been making it very chill, very low stress. However, I had a moment where I was going over to an area that I had a generator and there was a bunch of zombies there. So I had to turn around and then I killed off all those zombies, came back to my car and found it like this. And apparently it's a known bug, so I was like, all right, let's try to use debug and see if I can fix it. Well, I could not fix it. So I ended up just going and spawning another car that I actually have the keys for. And I think I'm just gonna destroy that one. It was a very interesting bug. That was kind of a little bit of a hurdle that I faced on my decompress relaxation time. But again, I did want to go and mention and circle back to reading because this is technically a reading vlog. I really appreciate everyone that showed up for my very first reading sprint. It was a lot, even during my Twitch stream days when I used to stream video games, which I am hoping to get back to and have an actual schedule that I can stick to. But even when I did that, I think I never had more than 10 people usually that were there like watching me live. So the fact that there was over 200 is just absolutely mind-blowing, but everyone was so kind and so sweet. The hosts were all amazing and they were all very seasoned in doing reading sprints and just very awesome with helping me and all my anxiety. And any fellow sweaty people in the chat that understood my sweat anxiety, I appreciate you, I see you, I adore you. And yeah, I'm excited to continue doing reading sprints in the future. Honestly, I've been a little bit chatty and I would like to get back into game playing and decompressing, but yeah, that is my update and all the millions of books that I've read or plan on reading. And yeah, I'm excited to share the rest of the week with y'all. There's some fun things planned, one of them being we're seeing Phantom of the Opera this coming weekend, so I'm excited to share all those moments with y'all. It is now Tuesday, a couple days after the Gala of Peace has ended. I did finish another book yesterday, which was Leather and Lark. So after, I think it might have been after reading Daggermouth or a different book, I was like, I kind of need like a palate cleanser. And so I decided to go with that. And honestly, these books aren't my type of books at all. Like, they're really not. But something about these audiobooks really does it for me. I think it might have to do with the dual narration. Leather and Lark was good, but I think Butcher and Blackbird was probably still my favorite. Just the voice actor for the male character was just amazing. And with Leather and Lark, it was kind of a Grumpy Meets Sunshine kind of book and a fake marriage or a forced marriage. It's still early. I can't remember the terminology for that, but the male character, he was the older brother of our main character in the first book, and he was kind of a little bit of a grumpier guy. Like, he had a good heart,
I guess. But yeah, he was just a little bit grumpier and more easy to anger, I guess. So with Leather and Lark, in some ways, and I don't know if anyone else felt this way, I was looking through reviews and I didn't see anyone mention it, but I kind of feel like Leather and Lark was like the dark romance version, to a certain extent, of Heartless by Elsie Silver. The main male character is an elder brother. He's super protective of his family. And then it was also Kiko. It was also a Grumpy Meets Sunshine book, and the main character, the female main character, was also a singer or could sing. Yeah, I don't know. There was just some pieces that kind of matched up, even though one was, you know, like a cowboy romance, and then the other one was a dark romance with like killers in it. But yeah, that was something that I was always like kind of connecting, like, oh hey, these are kind of similar. I did honestly really enjoy Leather and Lark. I didn't like it as much as the first one, and I think these books need to be consumed in audiobook format. I know for 100% if I read it physically, I probably would have rated it a lot lower and probably would have unhauled it if I did have the physical copy. So if you have been thinking about those books, highly recommend to go and read them via audiobook. There was also a singing portion with Lark, and honestly it was my favorite. Sorry, Kiko is up here and I don't have things on a tripod. I just have you balanced on a stack of books because I don't have a tripod that's like the right height. But yeah, I would highly recommend listening to it as audiobook format because Lark's singing alone I was obsessed with. It was so good. And then there was also a concert scene, and yeah, that was amazing. So I probably will continue on. I think I have the third book on Everend, and I think, like I mentioned in an earlier clip, I'm trying to finish going through the rest of my Everend books so that I can cancel my membership, but I can't do that until I finish all the books, otherwise I lose access to them. And I don't really want to deal with that. Working on figuring out my next book there. And then I did have to go and renew my loan for Warrior Assassin Princess, or Warrior Princess Assassin. I can't remember which way that title goes, but I was running out of time on my Libby hold and just wasn't going to be able to zoom through the book in the amount of hours I had. So because there was a long wait list on that, I had to like go to the back of the line there. So I don't know if I'm gonna be able to read that book during this vlog. I did go and get the audiobook for Spite House, but one of my concerns is that just given how hectic my work has been lately, I don't think I'm gonna be fully able to pay attention to what I'm listening to. And since we do have our book club meeting this weekend, I think I'm just gonna have to go and read this physically, which is totally fine. I just have to make sure that I actually make time to go and read it. I know that there's some people that have reading sprints up this week, so I might see if I can join a couple of them so that it really will get me to lock down and read this book. So far I'm intrigued. I'm only a couple pages in, but it seems like our main character had to leave where he was originally because of something that happened, and he's worried that people are following him or people are finding pieces about him online and know what he did, which obviously I'm only a few pages in, so I have no idea what's going on. And then he just went and called a house that is basically going and paying people to live there. So I'm assuming it's this place. So I am pretty curious on that, and we'll see how it goes. I don't know necessarily what the time setting is for the book, but it does seem to have a lot of racism pieces that the main character has experienced depending on what neighborhood they're in, and he does have concerns about like someone looking at him the wrong way, not only for his race but also from that piece that he's running away from. So already it has my attention, so I am excited to see how things turn out there. And then on the opposite end, I did finally get my Kindle to work, and so I am trying to read This Wretched Alchemy by Tina Marr. This was one that I was lucky enough to go and get an ARC for. And one thing I'm kind of noticing for myself with fantasy books, especially fantasy books that have a lot of world building, like this one, I know a lot of the time in other pages of the book, they'll kind of have like a breakdown of things, like what certain houses are and like a language key. I don't think that's the right terminology for it, but when there's certain magical words and then they'll have descriptions on like what this means. And I'm 100% sure that this book has that. I know it does have a breakdown of the houses, but I'm sure it probably has a breakdown of the magic stuff. And the unfortunate thing is that because I'm reading this via digital arc, I'm not able to go and flip back and forth to go and look through those pieces. I do love fantasy, but a lot of the time the world building and pieces like that take some time for my brain to catch up on and understand, like, oh, this is what they mean when they're talking about this or talking about this. So that's kind of what I'm struggling with currently. And I might just have to go and make my own physical key, which can be hard because a lot of the time when I have been reading lately, it has been in bed and I don't have a pen or a notebook or anything like that with me. From my understanding of this, our main character is kind of like in this prison currently, and the house that she is in has fallen. Like they don't really have a standing or anything like that anymore. I think this all happened when her brother went and kind of committed treason in a way. He stole an object, and because of that, he lost his life. And her magic wasn't able to bring him back because at that point, she wasn't skilled enough to do this. And then one thing led to another, and she got captured, I guess. And she's in this prison, and she's basically having to go and work for these people she's not thrilled about in order to protect her sister and her mother. But they go and kind of put these challenges on her where she relives this awful moment that happened. And so far she's failed every single test they've put on her in this situation. So yeah, that's about as much as I understand with this book so far. So we'll see how things go. I can't really say whether I'm liking it or not. I think the thing is I'm just struggling to keep everything organized in my head and fully comprehend the magical world that's getting built up at this moment. So we'll see how things go, but I think those are probably the two books that I'm probably going to focus on for the rest of this reading vlog and for this week of Realmathon. I really need to get things organized a little bit better because I feel like things are a little bit haphazard. Hopefully you don't mind too much, and I'll check in with you again when I've done a little bit more reading for both books. I am ready. We're gonna be going to see Phantom of the Opera, and I just finished getting dressed. I've been working on finishing The Spite House, and I did successfully complete it. I'm truthfully not quite sure what my rating would be, but I don't think it would be a 5-star, and I don't think it would be higher than a 4.5 star. So I'm still going back and forth on this book. There were so many different POVs in this story, and for the most part, I was able to keep them straight and figuring out, like, okay, this is this character, this is this character. So with the story, we basically have a dad running away with his 2 daughters, and they didn't do anything criminal. However, they don't want to be found, and they're kind of worried that people, like their loved one or people from their hometown, are going to be looking for them. And then the dad goes and finds this one job opportunity, which is this millionaire is basically going and asking for someone to stay in this house and basically report back to her on certain events. And if that happens, hi Woes. And if that happens, they will be awarded a large sum of money. And so this guy is like, this is almost too good to be true. Like, what's going on here? So he does go and like leave a voicemail and everything. And not long after, he was contacted. He basically goes and answers all these questions and things like that. And they basically say like, hey, you're going to meet up with this person who is the millionaire, and they're going to basically tell you whether or not you have the job opportunity. And then we kind of go over to the sisters, the eldest sister, and she's taking her younger sister to go and get some food, basically get a little break from this string of hotels that they've been stuck staying in. And the sister is being very wary and unsure about things around them, making sure that no one's going and staring too long, while the younger sister is just oblivious to everything. And then we jump back and forth to some other POVs, basically going and seeing the millionaire. She's probably a billionaire. Let's say she's a billionaire. We see the billionaire's POV and some of the things where she's going and interviewing prospective people that could potentially live in the house, and they don't really work out, but then she divulges one of her reasons for why she needs someone to go and stay here and why it's so important to her. And she's basically like, if you can't tell me that you've witness this or have an understanding of this, then I don't think you're the right fit. And so we kind of go around that. There's a lot of little mysteries that pop up back and forth, and you're kind of wondering like, all right, what's going on? And I want to say that at least like before we hit 100 pages left in the book, that's when we start getting some answers and a better understanding of what's going on, like what this billionaire is needing, and also what this dad is needing as well, because he has some secrets of his own, not necessarily linked to why they're on the run. So there's a lot of different people that are looking to get answers from this little event. And while they're in the Spite House, there's definitely a lot of little paranormal things that happen. You don't know necessarily like if the ghosts or the spirits at this house are evil. However, you have learned that some of the other people that have lived here have had awful things happen to them. So there's a bunch of different mysteries, but I was very happy that I didn't have to wait necessarily until the very last page of the book to get some of those answers. There were a few more questions that popped up probably in the last 40 pages, but the end of the book did go and answer that stuff and kind of left some extra little tidbits. So yeah, it was really good. Like I said, I don't think I'm gonna rate it above a 4.5 star. I'm still kind of going back and forth, but if anything, I think I'm leaning more comfortably with a 4-star rating. But we're gonna be having our book club meeting on Sunday with some of the girls. Sadly, Bo is not gonna be able to make it, but everyone else that was a host that did want to be a part of the book club will be there. There's Elena, there's Ivy, Nat, Steph, myself, and then sadly not Bo, but I'll have everyone's information linked below. And yeah, I'm excited to see how the book club goes. I think I'm one of the last few people that actually finished the book, and I've been spending majority of today trying to catch up and just finish the book so I'm able to go and talk about it tomorrow. I did ultimately decide I wasn't going to listen to it as an audiobook because I don't think that I retained the information the same way. That is why I decided to go through it physically, and it pretty much was a quick read as long as I buckled down and focused on the book. So now I'm just going to wait until Charles gets home, I guess do a little bit of relaxing, and then we're gonna head out to go to the show just so that we can avoid traffic. But I'm excited. It's actually like pretty toasty out, so the dress I'm wearing kind of looks like this. It is one of the older dresses that I picked up a while back, but pleasantly surprised that it still fits. This should keep me fairly cool because it's not a thick material by any means. So yeah, I'm excited to go. I'm going to do my tradition that I always do whenever we go to a showing and buying like a t-shirt. I usually always wear it as PJs or stay-at-home clothes. But yeah, I'm gonna get a t-shirt, and then probably the next time I talk to you is potentially Charles and my thoughts and opinions for The Phantom, and then when I go to the book club meeting and afterwards. So yeah, that was just a little check-in. Wanted to tell you a little bit about the book. I'm gonna try to finish Scythe and Sparrow, which I have on audiobook this weekend, and then I think aside from that, that will probably be all the books that I'm reading for this vlog, just because I feel like this one dragged on a lot longer than I was hoping. I was hoping to just do the Gala of Peace specifically, but that just didn't end up working out because I didn't have enough footage. We'll see how things go from here, and I'm excited to tell you my thoughts on Scythe and Sparrow because I have feelings about it, but I'll get to there later. I'll check in with you in a bit. Can you say hi? So it's kind of been a little bit just because we were so tired when we got back from the musical last night. I think it was around close to midnight when we ended up going to bed. But I have to show y'all the little what are these called? I can't remember what they're called at the moment. But I got another one of these. I have so many of these play pamphlets. I don't think that's the right word. And I collect them. I think in maybe a past video, I might have showed a glimpse of all the ones that I have. But yeah, this is another one to add to our collection. It's just getting to look at these and how many shows I've seen, not only on my own, but also with my partner. It's so much fun to go and carry these memories and everything. But let's talk about the musical last night. Y'all, it was so good. I have seen Phantom now 4 times, and this was probably my top performance out of all of them. It was absolutely amazing. Usually the past times that I've seen it, Nuggy's throwing her food around. So in the past times that I've watched it, I usually will go and find that one of the leads is amazing and then the other leads are okay, but they don't wow me. But this time, all 3 of them were so good. So I think almost 5 or 6 years ago when the Phantom last came to Colorado, I went with my mom, and we both were obsessed with the lead that played the Phantom of the Opera. He had this amazing voice. He also had huge hands that my mom and I were just zoned in on, but he had amazing vocals, and I was so happy because up until that point, the past shows that I've seen, the Phantom just wasn't the best singer out of him and Rel, which really upset me. And if you're a fan of the Phantom, and if you've also seen Love Never Dies, you will understand my frustration with why I wasn't happy about Rel. But with this show, the Phantom that they had, his vocals were phenomenal. There were some points when he was singing, he was holding onto a chord and it was so quiet. I thought it was just the music that was still playing from the orchestra, but no, it was actually still him singing. There was also another moment where he was like crawling on the floor and singing, which was a really interesting touch. And it was after the night, or the morning after Music of the Night, I'm assuming. And he was like crawling on the floor and still singing, and he did not miss a single note. So that was amazing. And then the lady that played Christine, amazing. There were no notes that she missed, and that was the same with the Phantom. Like, I have some songs that are my absolute favorites. I'm a theater nerd. I'm a musical girly, and I kid you not, when I was younger and used to watch the movie over and over, there were parts, like the part on the statue after the All I Ask of You part happened, and he is like singing to the skies and saying like, you will curse the day you did not do. And I would go and sing that while jumping on top of the couch and singing that to the ceiling. If you have been doubting if I'm a nerd, I hope that some of these things that I've revealed to you confirm that I am a huge nerd, okay? Okay. But so there was that part, and then the guy that played Raoul was also phenomenal. There was a portion, like when the prima donna part is in the musical, that you could really like hear him singing out of everyone else, because I think during that part there's at least 5 or 6 different people singing, and you could hear him clearly. So that was just wow. I was very impressed and also very happy because that was the first time Charles has ever seen that musical before. And the fact that they were seeing it with me, it was just also a nice little special touch to it as well. So yeah, super cool. I also have a tradition that every time I see a musical, I always get a shirt. I usually always wear these at bedtime, so that's why you never really see me wear these unless it's a reading vlog and it's at night. But I got this. I love the material. It's so soft. There were a few other things I was tempted to go and pick up, but honestly, a lot of it was just super expensive. So I just got us a magnet that we could put on our fridge and then this t-shirt. But holy crap, it was so good. I will go and say that there were some moments that I was a little bit disappointed with though. So some of the stage scenes, I feel like there could have been more. And since I've watched it at least 4 times now, like I said, I feel like I can be a little bit of a critique, especially with the fact that I've watched the movie, I kid you not, close to 100 times. I know every single word in the movie. So there were moments throughout the musical that I just felt like there should have been more. With the prima donna, I felt like there were some pieces that could have been a little bit more with her. The actress herself did amazing. Her vocals were stunning. But if you've seen the movie version of it, she kind of is a little bit more of a diva and is a little bit more snarky with her fellow co-stars in the play. And there were some of those pieces missing. So I was a little bit disappointed on that. And then in the prima donna part, when the stage managers are trying to convince her to come back to the show and that they won't give Christine the leads, and they're doing all these things to go and convince her to stay, I feel like there were some parts that they could have done a little bit more. Like they had their office and then they just had a chair that they were kind of twirling her around on. And I really feel like that was a huge miss on their end. They should have had a lot more stuff going on. And when there was a door that kind of opened when each person is storming in, saying like the Phantom gave them this letter and they have a note and they all these different things. There's a part that she could have easily done where she was trying to walk out that door and people were asking for Christine and had flowers and things, kind of like in the movie. I just felt like there was a lot of the stage that they could utilize a lot better instead of having it blank. And then another part that I wasn't too satisfied with either was after the intermission. It's after Masquerade and Raoul is going after Madame Giry and he's asking to know more about the Phantom because it's obvious that Madame Giry has some history with him. And when she's retelling the story, I was so disappointed, and Charles caught this bit. They kind of made it a lot more ableist. So usually Madame Giry is talking about how he's a genius, but she's terrified of him and just continues to repeat that piece. And in the past performance that I've seen, usually when she's retelling the story, they kind of have like almost like it's a flashback scene going on where the younger Phantom is with a sack on his head and he's playing with his little monkey, but also getting abused by the circus crew. And Madame Giry, as a younger ballerina at the time, she sees this and is heartbroken and ends up going and whisking him away and brings him down to the catacombs. That wasn't there for the musical portion. It was just not present at all. And instead, when Madame Giry is telling everything to Raoul, she ends up going and saying he was deformed, and just the way she worded it, it kind of gave me a huge ick and was very disappointing to me. So yeah, that was just a little thing on my end that made me a little bit disappointed, especially with how proactive some musicals have been with going and changing around certain things, realizing that they're not as politically correct or as appropriate now, whereas like they were okay 20 years ago. So that change there in the script for that part, I wasn't too thrilled about. But overall, this still was the best Phantom performance that I've seen so far, so I did really enjoy it. Now, going back to book stuff, because this technically is like a mood reading vlog video, we did have our meeting for the Spite House, and it was really cool. That was my first book club meeting on a YouTube live, so that was really fun. Ivy had all these questions that she had written up, and we were kind of bouncing around. Sadly, a few of the other co-hosts weren't able to make it. Bo had something that popped up, and then Elena sadly just wasn't able to get there because of timing and traveling and everything, so that was sad. But Elena was there in the comments going and sharing their answers for a lot of the questions we were answering, so they were there, they just weren't on camera with the rest of us. But that was really fun. We also did pick another book, and I can't remember the name of it right now, but I'll post it up here. Basically what we're doing is every 3 months we go and pick a book to read, and since we're going to be doing our next official like book club discussion will be during Pride Month, we all kind of decided to go and pick books that had some sort of LGBTQIA plus representation. I think the books that I recommended all had non-binary authors, and what we do is each of the co-hosts goes and picks a book, and then Ivy puts it on a spinner wheel, and then that goes and picks the book for us. So it's a really fun way of doing it, and always through the process of that, we all end up going and adding a million more books to our TBRs. So that was really cool. I did change my rating as well. So for Spite House, when I was kind of checking in the other day, I think my brain was just all over the place and I was saying the wrong numbers. I didn't want to rate the book higher than a 4-star. It just wasn't an absolute love for me. And so when I did go and submit my Goodreads and Storygraph ratings for the book, I did have it at a 3.5 star. And it was really interesting because the rest of the hosts were all the same way. So we were on the same wavelength for that one, which I don't think will happen with other books, but it was really cool that for our very first book club book, we were all on the same page. And then I'm still technically working on finishing Scythe and Sparrow. I think that's the one by Bryn Weaver. It's the last book in the series. And honestly, I'm just gonna flat out say I'm not really enjoying it as much. I liked the other books a lot more, with Butcher and Blackbird, of course, being my favorite. And then Leather and Lark was pretty close because I did really enjoy the Grumpy Meets Sunshine, fake marriage type of trope. I enjoy both of those when I read romance books. But with this one, it's just a friends with benefits type of storyline. And then with our main female character, she's just, she bothers me. She's supposed to kind of be a serial killer in a way, and she has this whole vendetta against men that harm women and goes and kind of rescues them from toxic relationships, and I absolutely love that piece. But the way she goes about offing these men is just so amateur and just so not smart, and she's gotten so lucky with how long she's been able to continue on doing this, and it's just not really believable at all. I'm not really a fan of her or the love interest for this. I think I have maybe 3 hours left, but I'm just gonna say it now. I'm not enjoying that. I'm not really enjoying the book, and I'll probably just leave down here so I don't have to pick up the camera again, but I'll leave down here my final thoughts, just saying if I did like it, if I didn't like it, and just kind of put it there. But yeah, I'm just not a fan of it. And I'm learning that maybe it's this whole friends with benefits piece that is a trope that I'm not really enjoying, because there was a book by Hannah Bonham Young, which I think is Next to You, if I'm not mistaken, and that was also a fake dating trope, and I did not really enjoy that one either, compared to her other books, which I pretty much, I believe, rated both of them 5 stars. At least in this process, I'm kind of learning what type of romance books I enjoy or don't enjoy, and especially which tropes could affect that decision. Yeah, we'll see how things go. Like I said, I'll leave my final thoughts here so I don't have to pick up the camera again and talk about it, because it would just be that book before I finish up this video. I did read a lot more books during this video technically than I did during my Love It or Lose It video, where I was hoping to go and read more books, but unfortunately got sick and that just threw things off. But I think after this, I'm gonna try to do another Love It or Lose It video and then sprinkle in some mood reading vlogs here and there. But I hope you enjoyed this. It was kind of all over the place. I did successfully read more books in this video, so I feel like I get a pat on the back for that. But if you got to this point of the video and you don't know what to comment, I'd say like leave a theater mask or maybe some roses for Phantom of the Opera. I know that's not technically a book that I read, but hey, if you're a theater person and you want to represent this amazing musical, leave those comments down below and I will eventually read Phantom of the Opera. I collect those books and I haven't read them yet, but it will happen eventually. But anyway, thank you so much for watching this video, and as always, I want to remind you all that you're worthy and capable of amazing things. Bye, friends.